Hey guys, welcome to the video. Welcome back, scoundrels, if you are indeed clicking on that notification button. And if you are, I've got a llama for you. It's in the post. Check your post in about 16 years. You should have a llama. If you want a llama, hit that bell. Wow, I sounded like a real YouTuber. After 3 years, I'm a real YouTuber. Thanks to G2A for sponsoring the channel. There's a reference link in the description below. Today, we're going to be going through the patch notes. I would have done this yesterday, as I said, but I wasn't confident on the compositions that I wanted to include in my tier list. I'm still not 100% confident because there are some builds that I think are still yet to come out, like static shiv builds. I think there are things there that can be worked with, but I'm going to put out what I think is good so far. There are a lot of space pirate builds that are cropping up. 500 IQ was doing it before it was cool and when they got buffed. But let's go through the patch notes and we can discuss them together, and then we can go through the actual compositions. And as always, guys, timestamps and link to the composition, links to the builder and the composition will be in the description below. So let's start with some of the basic changes. New Galaxy Salvage World. When you sell a champion, any completed items that they were holding are broken down into their components, and as such, they have removed Star Cluster. Salvage World is mental. Like, you can just slam items in the early game. Slam whatever you get, and if you don't like it, sell it later on. And make sure it goes on a champion that you want to sell, though. Really, really cool. It promotes good early item making. It promotes potentially looking for items that impact the early game before you would like look for completed items that would work better in the late game. So things like GA, Ionic Spark, Ludens, like you just slam them, and if you want to remake them later on, you do. Few quality of life changes. In-game recipes are here, which is really great. RIP all of the overlays that were doing that on the PC. You can also do this on mobile, as far as I'm aware. And essentially, that's just all the kind of quality of life stuff, not massive in terms of meta. Items, Hand of Justice. This is like a nutty item now. You grant 50% healing from damage done by both abilities and basic attacks, or 50% damage increase on your ability. So some units make like huge use out of this, like absolutely, like Jace. Anybody with like even Mech. I've played it on Mech and I quite liked it. Hand of Justice is quite nutty. It's a really, really good item to consider. Hextech Gunblade now gives you a shield. So if you are playing something like a Syndra, for instance, and you give her Hextech Gunblade as a third item, she will generate a shield at the start of the fight. Lock at the Iron Solari has been buffed primarily at 2 stars and 3 stars by 25. Don't know if it's going to make it OP. Still not an item that I would be massively considering in most cases. I don't actually play many like super 3-star orientated builds. Runan's Hurricane gets an extra 5% damage on the bolt. Not a game changer, but a nice little change. Static Shiv primary damage gets nerfed by 5, but now it deals 85 additional true damage if the target has a shield or is CC'd. So insane versus protectors. Insane versus any kind of unit that generates a shield in general. And really good if you're going to include a lot of CC on your team. Now, someone told me that Frozen Heart counts as CC. I cannot confirm it. I haven't tried it. But if you have, confirm it in the comments for me. Because if Frozen Heart counts as CC, oh my god, Static Shiv Frozen Heart combo is absolutely nutty. And Swordbreaker got buffed as well. Could be a good utility item for blasters. It might even open a pathway for 4 blasters to come back in, because you're applying lots of chance to potentially disarm the opponents. So very interesting. That's a 1 in 3 chance now. I would definitely look into potentially using this in a blaster composition. I don't think it's any good outside of blasters. Like, this is the only comp that can use this is blasters still, but it's definitely worth looking at. Traits. Okay, so essentially Shroud of Stillness, Mana Reaver, and Ezreal all reduced from 40% mana to 30%, essentially increasing the cost of the unit's mana by 30% rather than the 40%. Shroud of Stillness is still a great item, just not as ridiculous as it was before. Chrono. No matter how much they change these intervals, I still think Chrono is going to be a meme. And the only reason I think that is because there are very few builds that really make use of it. I love the 0.5 seconds at 8 Chrono, but who's playing an 8 Chrono composition? And you'd need to get to 9 to really make it super beneficial. So yeah, I'm still not sure Chrono is going to be a thing, but I'm going to try a comp with it, probably on my Smurf, just to see how it goes. Infiltrator jump time is fixed at 0.6 seconds, which just basically means that they'll always go, wherever you put them on the board, they'll always hit the backline at the same time. Can't work out, I mean, it's a little nerf. It's a little nerf, but not a huge nerf. Mech Pilot. So the big change with Mech Pilot is that until you, until you get all of your mechs to 2-star, so until you get Annie, Rumble, and Fizz to 2-star, it'll actually deal less damage on its ability. 50 less damage per rank until you 2-star all of your mechs. So you should work on prioritizing 2-starring your mech units to sort of get the similar damage output. But I think it warranted a nerf. 1-star mech was ridiculously strong. Rebel shield amount has gone up by 15. 15 at 6, which makes 6 rebels pretty strong. You're going to see some 6 rebels in the tier list. And obviously, if you ever want to chase it 400 at 9, but we never get that really. You'd need a lot of rebel spats too, maybe. Space Pirates get buffed. Well, hey, we're already playing them, and they get now a 33% chance. That's going to make Space Pirates pretty good, I think. And Vanguard gets nerfed at 6. Almost no one played 6 Vanguards, to be honest with you. So these changes is not going to affect the game. Very few people actually played 6 Vanguards, if I'm completely honest with you. Right, so let's have a look at champions. Tier 1, Fiora gets a 50 health buff. Nice. She's going to be a bit more relevant as a potential frontliner for Cybernetics. Zed attack damage steal getting buffed at 2-star by a pretty decent amount and buffed by a very sizable amount at 3-star, which may play into a potential hyper-roll infiltrator build, but realistically it's just likely that Zed's still going to be used in the Master Yi build. This is kind of making up for some of the Master Yi nerfs, which you're just going to see in a second. Bard passive mana, like almost nerfed by half at the first iteration, so 1-star Bard. Massive change for Bard, actually. You now need to 2-star him to get the really solid mana output, but honestly with Shojin's, maybe 1 extra basic attack, but yeah, it will make a difference. You can't just stick a 1-star Bard and expect to like farm levels. Master Yi gets a 25 damage nerf at level 3, probably warranted, but again, I've still seen him do very well on ladder. Fizz gets yet another damage nerf, only at level 1 though, by 50, level 2 will stay the same. Jhin attack speed is going to get nerfed at 1 and 2, and Jhin attack damage is, Jinx attack, so Jin's getting attack speed nerf across the board until you're 3-star, so it's going to limit, it's actually going to reduce Jin's damage because he scales on attack speed. Teemo's attack speed is getting reduced slightly. I've still seen Teemo shred with blue buff, so I don't know how much difference this is actually going to make. And the Jinx attack damage is tiny again. I still don't think Jinx is in a ridiculously good spot, and the reason I don't think Jinx is in a ridiculously good spot is because fights are really burst heavy right now. Like everything is like Teemo streams bursting you, Syndra's bursting you, Mech's bursting you, Gangplank now bursting you, Infiltrators, Fizz and Echo bursting you. Jinx is just unfortunately too slow. She's just a too slow of a unit to make work, and I think she's good, but like she's still going to pale in comparison to some of the other units in the game. And Gangplank getting a 100 damage buff at level 1 and a 100 damage buff at level 2, insane. Honestly, this is a really big change, especially with Rabadon's death cap. Like you put a Rabadon's on Gangplank, even at level 1, he's going to crush. So big buffs. I will let you read this bit yourself. I don't think it's particularly relevant. They're basically making the spatula traits. So when you get like 2 or 3 spatulas, or 2 spatulas for the most part, you're going to get like insane rewards for it. It's definitely something that you can go for. The most achievable one is Infiltrator, because you only need 1 Infiltrator spat, I think, to make this work. But otherwise, for the most part, I would ignore most of these. These are not worth chasing in a regular game, but they are quite fun if you are looking to do something with spats in like a Treasure Trove Galaxy or in a normal game, or if you're really lucky, you just be aware that they've buffed pretty much all of the chased stats, including buffing 9 Rebels, buffing 9 Star Guardians, buffing 8 Battlecast, a ridiculous amount, buffing 8 Dart Stars, and ever so slightly buffing Infiltrators at 6, because they're a little bit easier to achieve. So definitely look at them, but I don't think they're relevant for an average game. This is the big change that's happened. It's 3-star champion balance. Leona getting, I think this is ridiculous, by the way. I'm really keen to test out Candyland build. They've basically doubled Leona's damage reduction at level 3. So if you were to play the Poppy, because Poppy's had a big buff at level 3, plus Leona, and then you play like Sorcerers with Syndra with blue buff, like I actually genuinely think on the Re-Roll Galaxy especially, that's an insanely good composition to think about, and I'm actually going to put it in my tier list. Don't know where to put it yet, I'll just have a guess, but I do think that there is a world where this is an incredibly good build to potentially go for. The Malphite buff doesn't, yeah, I mean, like, it's good, but there aren't many builds where you'd be like, wow, 3-star Malphite, apart from potentially in a Rebel build, and if you can get a 3-star Malphite in a Re-Roll Rebel build, great. Ziggs is getting a buff again, so maybe maybe there's a world where we can play 3-star Ziggs re-roll again in with the fact that you've got Malphite 3 and then you just play Rebels. Might be worth looking at. But unfortunately, there's no double Seraphs anymore, so Ziggs is always going to be a little bit slower than he was in set 3. So honestly, I'm not sure it's going to be a huge difference maker. But Ziggs 3 might be something that you can chase in the reroll galaxy, for instance, and it might be worth it. Ari getting a buff, pretty significant buff, 50 damage. Annie's getting a 100 damage and 100 shield buff, which would be really good, you know, in both sorcerers, but also when she pops out of mech, if she's 3-star, she's going to have a big increase. Blitzcrank's getting like obviously a meme change to 1337, but that actually is a lot of damage. Blitzcrank's one-shotting a unit if you get him to 3-star in a lot of situations. Darius is getting a damage buff on his. I swear Riot does this for memes. They just like randomly pull these numbers out their butt. But you know, 3-star Darius and Space Pirates, that's pretty significant damage increase. You know, you could keep things like the Ionic Spark on him, for instance. Lucian's getting another buff at level 3. Still don't know how to make Lucian relevant, but it's another big damage buff. Mordekaiser getting a 50 shield bonus for 3-star Mordekaiser carries. Nautilus is getting a 100 damage bonus on his ability. Nautilus's base stun duration is going up to 6 seconds at 3-star. So Vanguard Mystic searching for 3-stars may be worth it with Mordekaiser as a potential secondary carry. Nautilus obviously having a huge amount of CC, so worth considering. Ezreal, EMP damage doubled at level 3. Ezreal level 3 is not something I would ever chase, but if I walk into it, it's a lot of damage. Rumble Flamespitter getting a 150 damage buff. BBQ Rumble, maybe still good. Vi spell damage getting a massive boost, and also the secondary damage there. So I've seen people going for 3-star Vi's. I've seen people going for Cybernetic Re-Roll, especially because Vayne gets a 50% damage buff on her final hour attack damage, which is nutty. So 3-star Vayne still definitely a solid win condition. Gnar getting a 1000 transformation health damage, and Riven getting a huge buff at level 4. But how often are you ever going to get Riven to 3-star? Especially because Riven 2-star sucks so much. So, you know. And Janna's getting an 8-second Howling Gale duration, which is hilarious, but obviously it's a 3-star legendary, so it kind of deserves to have that kind of impact. And those are the majority of the changes, and I think some of them are going to impact some builds. There's going to be some interesting builds that we're going to throw into the discussion this week. Sorry this was so long. It was quite a big patch. Let's get on to the comps. Hey guys, let's get through the compositions. We have a lot of them today. I'm putting a load in. I don't know exactly how strong they're going to be. I'm just guessing at this point in time. I've only had a 1 day, but obviously I just wanted to be able to get a little bit of a read. I'm not saying that my tier list is 100% accurate. I'm giving it the best shot that I've got, but let's get on with it. Top of the pack, Astro Snipers. Still ridiculously strong. Despite the nerfs to Jhin, Teemo's still smurfing. Honestly, this build is just still very incredible. This is the 4-sniper version. There is a version that includes 2 snipers and 2 mystics, which I'll also include in the description below. But to start things off, I don't think Astro Sniper is particularly changed despite the minor nerfs to both Jhin and Teemo. It is still a very strong build. It revolves around getting the perfect items for Teemo. You need to have blue buff and Morellonomicon. Rabadon's also helps, but honestly, if you hit those items, you hit Teemo too with the rest of the lineup 2-starred, you're going to do a lot of damage. So yeah, I'm going to share this one. I'm also going to share the 2 Mystic version in the description below. These guys go firmly at the top of the pack in S tier. Secondly, Star Guardian Sorcerer. I don't think much has changed with this build whatsoever. There is just some buffs to people like Ari, if you can get her to 3-star. But honestly, it's still a very strong build. Syndra can still really pop off. If you hit her 3-star, she's a very strong win condition. And in terms of top 1ing, this can definitely do it. Sometimes it gets a little bit outshone by other builds, but it's a very consistent build if you can hit the Syndra with blue buff. And again, blue buff being one of the most high priority items. And I think, as you can tell over on the side here, that tier is going to be your priority until you hit that blue buff. You don't need GA on Syndra. If there are no infiltrators threatening her, you could go for something like a Hextech Gunblade now, or you could even just power her up even further with Illudens. Completely up to you. You play it how you like from that point, but yeah, this is still a very strong build, Star Guardian Sorcerer. I've done it a lot on my channel. Nothing has really changed. The only change that you could make if you wanted to were to be get rid of the Jarvan, add a Rakan, and then bring in a Lulu. I will share that version of the build as well. Either or, they're both very strong. Alright, time to talk about Cybernetics. They're in a really good spot for a couple of reasons. I'm going to focus on the fact that if you can 3-star Vi and Vayne, you are absolutely killing it right now. Vayne has had a couple of buffs, and if you can 3-star her, she will carry like nothing else right now. She's had a massive buff to her 3-star damage output. So if you can 3-star Vayne, it's really strong. So what I would recommend, potentially with Cybernetics, is once you hit 6 Cybernetics and you're in a good spot, maybe consider slow rolling for Vayne. If you don't think you've got enough HP to do that, or you don't think the lobby is suitable, obviously the best plan is to go to 9 and add Thresh and Jhin. I would recommend prioritizing the sniper bonus if you've got Vayne stacked. If you are not stacking Vayne and instead have chosen to stack Irelia, I would prioritize the Thresh. And obviously, Irelia, she'll work really well with Infiltrator Talons, and that's something that you can work towards. And you don't necessarily need Last Whisper on Irelia because she's going to jump to the back line if she's got Infiltrator Talons. What I would say is that, again, as with always with Cybernetics, Irelia can be really bad if she doesn't have Infiltrator Talons, because sometimes she just gets stuck on the front line and will never get resets, which is why Vayne is so good in that scenario. Sometimes splitting the itemization between Vayne and Irelia will really help you when playing Cybers, but I do think Cybers that are in a pretty good spot right now. I wouldn't call them S tier, definitely a solid A tier build though. So yeah, this is the way I would play Cybernetics personally. This could also be Ashe if you're looking for more utility, by the way. I just put Jhin in because he's obviously quite good damage output, but you might not need the damage output. This could be Ashe. It could also very easily be Caitlyn if you wanted to change the Wukong for somebody, for instance. So always worth considering. So the Gangplank buffs are huge, especially for something like Mech Demolitionist, which is the build that I'm going to show you here. Victor's still in a strong spot, still doing the same amount of damage, and Gangplank coming back into the mix means that you're going to see a lot more potential Gangplank-orientated builds, including those pesky Space Pirates that I've been showing you. And this build was already pretty good on the previous update, and I think it's only just got better. The only drawback right now for this build is you do need to look to 2-star all of your mech units. Otherwise, you are going to see a little bit of a damage drop-off. Now, it's not a horrendous damage drop-off by any stretch of the imagination, but I would very much recommend that if you're hitting level 7 or level 8 and you don't have your 2-star mechs yet, just slow roll a little bit, try and see if you can find Rumble and Annie. Your priority should be getting Gangplank with the GA on the board, because his damage output at level 1 is now pretty strong. You could consider a Morellonomicon, but if your Victor's got one, honestly, I would take the Rabadons on Gangplank. It's just going to get you better results overall, especially in combination with the burst from the mech. So that is, yes, this is Mech Demolitionist, which I think is going to be a strong build. And until you have Gangplank, use Ziggs, because it's still going to give you the demo bonus. Otherwise, when you get Gangplank, you can replace the Ziggs with him. Okay, so I don't know if I invented this build, but I'm going to claim that I invented this build, because this is the one that I was playing on my channel earlier this week. This is what I'm going to call Space Pirate X build. Essentially, this is about using Darius and Jace to get you through the mid game really easily. Get to level 9, play strong units, and then just spam legendaries. It's essentially an adjusted Peeba build, but you use the Space Pirates to farm items for your legendaries, and eventually you can drop people like Graves and Darius for just other legendary units that you want to. For instance, like Janna works really nicely, but this is the way that I would play it for the most part until I felt the need to drop the Graves and the Darius. Darius 3 is still actually a pretty solid carry, so that you could even try and go for Darius 3. But honestly, this build, if you can make it work, it's absolutely killer in the late game. The only problem is you do need to get a good mid game, because level 9 is absolutely necessary. But if you can do that, and you can transition to level 9 easily, this build is insanely good, especially with the buffs to Space Pirates. Speaking of Peeba, the next build is Peeba's comp, which is essentially spam legendaries. Get to level 9 and Janna, Lulu, Urgot, Echo, Aurelion Sol, whoever you like, maybe even Gangplank now that he's good. And, you know, you could consider Gangplank as an addition over something like the Echo or the Fizz, whatever you want to do. Peeba is a strong build. It's very hard to play. It does revolve around getting a good early game, knowing how strong your board is, understanding when to transition, but it's a build that if you do learn to play it, it will make you much better at the game. I did make a video on it just a couple of days ago. Feel free to check it out. I won't link it in the description because there is so much going on in the description in this video, but it is a build that it definitely will carry you through Diamond into Master if you can master it, because it's a very strong build to play. You won't be able to play it every game. You won't be able to get strong enough every game to play it, but it's definitely something to have in your arsenal. If you have a really strong mid game and you're not quite sure where to go with your comp, get 9, spam legendaries. This is an interesting version of Vanguard Mystic, and I'm going to talk about a few things. You might think, why have you got all the itemization on Jason Mordekaiser? I'll get to that. Vanguard Mystic still very strong. Priority is always going to be Morello's and blue buff on Cassiopeia. However, there has been some big buffs to both Mordekaiser and Nautilus at 3-star. Mordekaiser could genuinely be a really strong 3-star carry in this Vanguard build. So what I want you to consider is maybe at level 8, slow rolling for Nautilus and Mordekaiser 3-star if you can't go for Jace, for instance. Because, or even level 7 by the way, because they are very strong at level 3 now. And Nautilus gives you a 6-second stun, which with Cassiopeia is insane. Mordekaiser has a buffed shield, which if you're giving him some AP, he's going to be a very strong contender for a frontline carry. So that's why I've got the Jace items on the Mordekaiser. If you're going for 2 stars, stick with Jace. If you're going for 3 stars, Mordekaiser is a very good option for your carry items. Here is another build that I recently was playing on my channel, which is Mech Pirates. I don't know how good this build is going to be, but I'm going to put it tentatively in the same tier as the Space Pirate build because I think it has the potential to be very strong. I just want to obviously try and tweak it a little bit. I may be overestimating how powerful this comp can be, but Space Pirates are in a good position right now. Mech, if you can 2-star it, is still exactly the same, and you can then just essentially ditch Darius and Graves and just go for more legendaries. But Mech is another good option to consider when playing Space Pirates, and I think genuinely, if you can 3-star Rumble, especially in 3-star Annie, like this is a very strong build to play, and again revolves around Gangplank. Gangplank got some pretty big, significant buffs to his damage output. With Rabadons especially, you'll feel it, so loving trying this build out, and I would recommend giving it a go. Mech Pirates, definitely something that could be played in lots of different games. So I did mention that you are likely going to be seeing 6 Rebels pop up here, and I think this is a good opportunity to throw it in A tier. I think it's a strong build. Gangplank's in a great place, and I think 6 Rebels getting a buff is going to help both Jinx and Gangplank as carry units. So I don't know why Aurelion Sol is there. You really want to make the maximum use out of your Rebel bonus. So I think 6 Rebels is probably the best way to play Jinx. I just don't think Jinx is good enough in Brawler Blaster right now. But I think 6 Rebels with all the buffs could potentially be a very, very strong build to play. So I'm going to put this one in A tier along with the rest of the compositions. So I'm going to put this build in. I am just going to quickly shove some extra items onto Zed just because in case you can get them. I'm going to put this build in, which is obviously the Blade Master Slowroll build, which revolves getting 3-star Master Yi, 3-star Zed, 3-star Shen, 3-star Yasuo if you can find them. I'm putting this build in because it's a very strong build, but I'm putting it A- tier because A, Master Yi just got nerfed, and B, it's hard to achieve without Blade Master Spat, and it becomes a little bit less effective without Blade Master Spat on the Zed as well. So you can still play this without Zed. All you need to do is find one of the Blade Master. It could be Xayah, for instance. It could literally be anyone, to be honest with you, but you just need that one extra Blade Master. But clearly it's not as good as if you get the Blade Master Spet on the Zed, because Zed provides another really solid source of damage. Actually I think another rapid fire cannon is usually better on Zed, but yeah, Zed provides a really good source of damage, and I think makes this build much stronger overall. However, it's still a very strong build if you can hit it, so it's going to go in A- tier. And again, you slow roll at level 7 for Master Yi, Zed, Yasuo, Shen primarily. Getting them to 3-star, especially Master Yi, is pretty imperative to getting a top 1 with this build. So this is a build that I saw in LoL chess, and I've never actually seen before, but it is something that strikes me as quite fun to play. So I'm going to talk a little bit about it. It's essentially Demolitionist 3 Rebel Space Pirates with Aurelion Sol, and obviously Aurelion Sol will just get items like, well, anything that you can give him really that you'll get from the Space Pirates, but it does strike me as a really fun build to play, and I think it could be very strong in the right hands. A little bit weak to Infiltrators with Jinx having no protection, but really Gangplank and Aurelion Sol are going to be your main driving force here. So I'm putting this in because I think it is a good build, and I think if you can play it correctly, it's like any other Space Pirate build with any other Gangplank orientation right now, it's going to be strong. But I think it's maybe one of the weaker forms of Space Pirate on this particular setup. But it's going to go in just because of kind of like the... I saw it on LoL Chess basically, and I thought it was cool. So I thought I'd include it in case you want to try it. There's lots of different avenues that you can go with Space Pirates. I just want to add as many as possible. So Brawler Blasters is going in B tier, and the reason is... it's the weaker version of a Jinx comp right now, in my opinion. I think the Gangplank Rebel version is much better. One of the mistakes that I've been making on Brawler Blaster recently is giving Jinx red buff. If you give Jinx red buff on Brawler Blaster, she just does not have the damage. She needs more damage to get her early resets. You're going to give red buff to someone like Ezreal if you have been using it to win streak. But honestly, I would give Jinx your damage items like Giant Slayer, Deathblade, Infinity Edge, Last Whisper, anything like that. The combination doesn't really matter, but just don't give her red buff. Red buff just isn't enough damage to allow Jinx to pop off. I think she needs things like Deathblade, Giant Slayer, etc, etc. I've just put like a little combination of 2 Giant Slayers and a Runans on, because I think obviously with the Runans buff it could be something to look at. But honestly, just any other AD damage item combination works better on Jinx than red buff in Brawler Blaster. If you're going to play her in Brawler Blaster, she needs damage items, not red buff. That's the primary takeaway if you're looking at this particular build. So I'm going to include both versions of Shredder in B tier as well. There's a really interesting kind of, I talked a little bit in the patch notes about Static Shiv and Frozen Heart. I'm wondering whether the Pikachu build, the triple Static Shiv Xayah is able to make a comeback if Frozen Heart counts as a form of CC. If it's things like stuns and knockups, then I think it's going to be a little bit harder to make it work effectively. But if Frozen Heart counts, then I do think that there is a potential for a triple Static Shiv Xayah. Sorry, I'm hiccuping. This is the Celestial version of the Xayah build. I think that you could basically go either the 6 Blade Master or the 3 Blade Master version. I'm going to include both of them. They're about equal power level, in my opinion. But overall, this is a build that is going to be good, but you do need to hit your 3 stars. And it will almost always lose out to things like Astro Sniper in the late game, because it has to go through like frontline units and it takes a while to ramp up, whereas Astro Sniper will just blow you up with Teemo Shrooms. So I'm going to include it at B tier. It's still a strong build, definitely don't count it out, but it's not like an absolute game winning build, even if you get all of your 3-star units. Just a quick one to show you the other version, the 6 Blade Master version involving Irelia, Master Yi, Riven, etc. Again, I think, if you want to play this version, I like to add something like an Echo later on to give you Cybernetics, or anything really, just another Cybernetic to get Irelia in a good spot. Irelia with 3 Cybernetics could be like a secondary carry here. I've only got these items on her just in case you've got like surplus items, usually like Treasure Trove, for instance. But obviously, Jarvan and Xayah are going to be your main item holders for this particular build. So, yeah, going to include this. Not going to talk too much about it. It's just the other version of Shredder that you can play. So I think this build might be better than I'm giving it credit for, but I'm just not sure. This is BBQ Rumble. You've seen BBQ Mech, you saw my Mech video where we played Infinity Edge Dual Gauntlet, where there is actually a version of the build going around where you don't play Mech and you just play Rumble. And you look to 3-star Rumble and play him alongside Celestial, where he's just going to heal a huge amount from his ultimate every time he casts. So you have Ziggs for the demo bonus, you have Lulu and Karma for Mystics, Xin Zhao and Rakan to provide an extra bit of frontline, and then Jhin and Ashe to give you some sniper bonus at the back. I think this build is potentially better than I'm giving it credit for, but especially now that 3-star Rumble just got buffed. Yeah, Rumble got buffed at 3-star, which makes him pretty scary if you can get him to 3-star with these particular items. I would love to hear if you try this build out and it works for you, but I'm putting it in at B- tier. It might be better than I'm giving it credit for. I'm just not sure, so I'm going to include it here. Battlecast Re-Roll. Battlecast didn't get any significant changes with the patch that just came out, and honestly still very item dependent. Slow roll builds are always going to be risky, and you need to find Urgot to make it work. It's a good build, but it's not a consistent build in my opinion. It will do you well, but it gets outscaled by a lot of other builds in the game right now. If the 3-star Alawi changes had gone through, would have been an A-tier build for sure, because 3-star Alawi looked nutty, but nothing really much changed here for Battlecast, so I'm going to put it down in the same B- tier. I think it's good, I think you can play it. Might not win you every game that you play though. You're going to be going to level 6 or level 7 and rolling for 3-star Kog'Maw, 3-star Alawi, 3-star Nocturne, and then you're looking to go to 8 as quickly as possible and find yourself an Urgot to complete the composition and round it out. It can be a little bit precarious to play, as with any slow roll build. If you don't hit your units, you're going to fall flat on your face, so yeah, just be aware. I am putting this build tentatively in B- tier. I think it's got legs, especially in the reroll galaxy. You're looking to 3-star Zoe, Twisted Fate, Poppy, and Leona, and if you can, maybe Annie. But Poppy and Leona are your priorities alongside Twisted Fate, and obviously Twisted Fate can have things like Shojins and Morellonomicon, wherever that is. Shojins and Morellos. Obviously, Ginsu's is good for Xerath. Poppy got some big buffs to her 3-star version, and Leona got some big buffs to her 3-star version. Genuinely think Candyland 2.0 is coming your way this patch. I would not be surprised. Feel free to bookmark this and either flame me if I'm wrong, or come back and tell me, good job, Excoundrel, if you're right. I think it's got legs. Just saying. The buffs seem good enough, especially to Leona and Poppy, to make this worthwhile. So I think definitely don't sleep on Candyland again. I think it's potentially making a comeback. Okay, so we've got a couple of builds left to go. Shojin's Ashe is the build that I'm going to show you here. It had a lot of popularity on sort of midway through 2 patches ago. It's just fallen off. I think people prefer Astro Sniper to Shojin's Ashe right now. But again, it's a build that you can play. Shojin's Ashe will do well in the mid game. Just falls off a little bit in damage output as the game goes on. 3-star Ashe is a possibility, but realistically, this is a build that I go if I have no idea what I'm doing and I can make a Shojin's, for instance. So yeah, Shojin's Ashe it's definitely got potential to do well. I just don't think it's the best sniper build that you can go right now. So just be aware, it's a good build, but it's not like a game stomping build. And finally, for Darkstar, honestly, Shaco hasn't been changed, and I still think Shaco with Bloodthirster Frozen Heart can carry you really hard in the mid game, but obviously for Darkstar, it's being outshone a little bit by Astro Sniper right now. Again, it's pretty good. I still think it's a really solid build, but the nerfs to Jhin is going to affect your late game a little bit. Fizz got nerfed at 1-star, which will hurt you a bit more so than anything else. So a lot of these units have been nerfed consistently, but it's still a build that you can play. I'm putting it in because it's a build that you can play, and just because it's in B- tier doesn't mean you can't win with it. It just means that it's a little bit harder to win with sometimes than some of the other builds in the meta right now, but it's still a good build, don't get me wrong. But this is the last build that I'm going to include here with 4 Darkstar. I'm not going to include any meme builds today. I'm just not entirely sure, and there's already so many builds in the video. But if I find any new builds, I'll obviously publish them on the channel, and we can kind of go through them together as we always do. So here is my full list. Lots of builds to try out on this next patch. Feel free to get back to me how they're going, and thank you for watching. If you've watched this far, please think about subscribing. I really appreciate all the support. And if you want to subscribe and hit the bell notification, leave a comment, like the video, you would really make my day, so thank you.